we've really kind of taken the reins off. And, we've let Horizon off of its, theoretical leash, so to speak, and it's expanding in all new and exciting ways. One of the things that has gotten a tremendous amount of press has been hosted application streaming. So what does this mean? What this means is that, before, if a user needed to access an application inside of a virtual desktop environment, they would have one of two methods. They would either A, need to access that application on the virtual desktop itself, or B, that application would be packaged, okay, and it could run on top of another system. But the problem was that it didn't allow for ubiquitous access across all different platforms. This gave us the capability to run, Windows-type programs inside of a Windows desktop, or we could package it up and, do kind of neat things like, running two different versions of Internet Explorer side by side on the same system. But we definitely couldn't run Internet Explorer on a Mac. We couldn't run it on an iPad, right? And that's where the wheels kind of came off. And, for a lot of companies are moving toward, bring your own device. And let's face it, the last few years, Apple has done a tremendous job, and a lot of people are deploying those inside of work. I know we use them here at VMware quite extensively. And, so with that and Android devices and all sorts of things, issues of security and choice have become paramount. Now, hosted applications is a fantastic feature, and what it allows us to do is to stream applications directly from a virtual machine onto any device target. That means that you can be, accessing a hosted application from your Android, from your iPad, from your Mac, from your Windows machine, all of the above, depending upon, how you work, and you're going to get a consistent experience. So it doesn't matter what you use or how you access it, you're going to get access to your applications. This is a tremendous leap forward in Horizon, and probably the biggest and most exciting bit, which I'll explain more to you about here in a little bit, is its ease of deployment. It's very, very straightforward. There's not a lot of heavy lifting that's required for this to be a successful deployment. What does it look like? So I always contest that everything works in PowerPoint, right? So I'm going to kind of put my money where my mouth is, and I'm going to show you what it looks like to have this work. But for right now, this is kind of the big idea, right? You've got remote applications, but you're not losing your local experience. Everything stays very seamless. It's able to run across any desktop or laptop. Even if it's Windows 8, we're already compliant with 8 and 8.1. And, of course, like I said, the highly popular Mac OS X. Additionally, it integrates with everything else inside of the environment. The copy and paste, moving things in and out between applications, it's not, the user isn't locked in inside of the experience. So this gives you, all new ways to talk to your clients about things that they can do with their apps. Additionally to desktops and laptops, it also integrates natively with the Horizon mobile client into iOS, as I mentioned, as well as Android. The benefits here, I think they're probably pretty common. You're talking, about flexibility of choice. You're talking about, being able to, leverage existing investments. And after all, that's what everything that VMware does is about. We're about leveraging investments and enhancing the ecosystem, right? That's what we do. So, being able to look at new mobility initiatives and being able to look at, what customers are capable of doing is, another great call inside of just this one feature of Horizon 6, right? So let's put it in scope, right? We've talked about one feature so far, and this is already ridiculously exciting, at least to me. Now, what else is in Horizon 6? So something else that you guys may have already heard a little bit about is Virtual SAN. For those of you who aren't familiar, I'll give you kind of a very, very quick rundown on virtual SAN. What this means is that, instead of necessitating the purchase of a big storage area network and necessitating the purchase of, high-speed storage for VDI and all of these sorts of things, you can leverage VMware Virtual SAN that starts at a minimum of 3 hosts. Okay, it starts with 3 hosts. That's all you need. And inside of those 3 hosts, it can pool the local storage of those 3 hosts and present them as a storage area network. Now, some very important points, when we're talking about this storage area network. Like I said, number 1, it's leveraging the local storage of the hosts. Number 2, it is creating a flash and SSD-based optimized architecture. Okay, so that's a lot of geeky words for one thing. What that means is when people are doing virtual desktop, when they're doing cloud, they need solid-state disk caching. They need that flash caching that makes the user experience seamless, okay? This is what Virtual SAN has baked into it right from the minute you deploy it. So customers are able to look at, doing smaller purchases either just for their cloud or their virtual environment, or being able to, add this on. Additionally, it is fully integrated with vSphere. So if somebody understands vSphere, they already understand Virtual SAN. And this helps you in your conversations to reduce the CapEx, cost impairments that normally exist with VDI. Any of you who've done virtual desktop know that when you're talking VDI, usually the wheels come off when you start talking about the storage requirements. So this is a great way to come back and say, well, we can do this. We can start with 3, and we can allow it to scale out. The beauty here, folks, is, yes, it starts with 3 hosts, but it scales out to as many as 32. That gives you over 4 petabytes of data, and talking about running like about 2 million IOPS when it's fully scaled out. So it can start very small, and it can scale outward and upward to be an absolute leviathan of storage. So tons of flexibility. We're very excited to introduce the integration of this and also the availability of Virtual SAN inside of some of our bundles. In addition, looking at our unified workspace inside of Horizon 6. Our unified workspace gives users the ability to, access all sorts of things from one ubiquitous console, right? You guys have all heard it. For anybody that's out there playing bingo, I'll go ahead and say single pane of glass, right? That's the idea. And so what kind of things are available inside of this? Well, they're able to access their virtual desktops. They can log in and then they can click an icon and get their virtual desktop right from here. They're able to see, hosted applications. I was talking about those hosted applications that are streamed, that new feature inside Horizon 6. That's available here. They're able to also see their conventional, thin app packages. We also have integrations for Google applications. So somebody doesn't need to have all of the know-how to deploy Google integration. They can deploy Google apps, and we can seamlessly make it so that they don't have to, create all sorts of user logins and all of this, kind of commotion every time somebody signs on. It's very seamless. The user sees it, they click the button, and bam, they have Google Apps. And that's the functionality that exists inside of Horizon. Additionally, we've seen that there's a lot of groundswell and a lot of momentum around people that they're looking back at their Office integrations. And they're saying, well, it takes a lot of heavy lifting to deploy things like SharePoint and, Exchange and Access and all of this stuff. What if we just did, Office 365? So we've now integrated Office 365 as an available point of integration for Workspace. And it works natively with the Office 365 federation and credentials, so it's kind of a plug-and-play thing for them. Additionally, we know that some customers are still using XenApp, right? They have existing, XenApp integrations in play. Let's face it, for a long time, that was the, de facto, that was the gold standard for application delivery. And, while there's been a lot of changes to it, there's still a lot of people that have those investments. So if you're motioning this to your customers, give them the ability to integrate, things like, Citrix XenApp applications that they may have, already deployed out there, and fold that right into Horizon. So you don't have to do a rip and replace. You can ease in and kind of take a land and expand approach, and you don't have to, make a big upheaval. And lastly, we provide integration for all sorts of software as a service. This could be anything. This could be Salesforce. This could be ADP. This could be, Google applications. This could be American Express, whatever you want. So imagine, if you will, one portal where users are able to get their desktops. They're able to see the company Facebook along with their payroll, along with their Citrix apps that they've been using, along with everything else that they are requesting. And it's all with an app store-like experience where they can get anything they want on any device they want at any time. So, I mentioned that one user interface. And I think this is really kind of the core of the approach. We've got one user interface that drives all of this. And that one user interface gives them the ability to access across all of these different platforms and gives your administrative targets the ability to say, I can really wrap my arms around BYOD, and I don't have to be afraid, and I don't have to freak out, because it's here. So what does, if we were to look at, this integration, and I told you I was going to kind of put my money where my mouth is, let's take a look at Horizon 6 applications in action inside of a Mac environment. So what I've done here is I've created a video that is myself accessing the beta environment for Horizon 6 and utilizing it, and I'm going to kind of walk you through it. So what we see here is, I've logged in. You can see I'm using my Mac in this video, and I've got all kinds of applications. This is a ThinApp application. It's saying, well, you can't run that. Over here, I've got, my, standard type of workspace applications. And, I also have SaaS-based applications, right? The things like software as a service. Remember I mentioned American Express, things like that. But let's say I want to access a real Windows-based application on my Mac. Now, a great example is something like Microsoft Access. Access, Visio, these are uniquely Windows applications. They exist nowhere else inside of the IT ecosystem. So it tells me that this is a Windows application. And so I'm going to launch this application. And as I launch it, you're going to see that we're leveraging, in this instance, the Citrix Viewer. Now, why are we doing this? The reason we're leveraging this viewer, if you have a customer that asked, is really twofold. One, it gives us the ability to access these applications and allow it to be perfectly seamless inside of this release. Number two, it allows us to go ahead and leverage and attach to existing XenApp environments. So for us, it was kind of a two birds, one stone kind of thing. But I think it's very important to point out that as with everything VMware does, if you look at where we are in, pre-GA, which is what this is, all the way to what it's going to be, maybe by the time VMworld comes around, you're going to see a lot of growth. So for today, this is the way it functions. And it's given us a tremendous amount of breadth and flexibility in what we can do. So here you can see I'm accessing, Access, and I'm able to do this inside of my Mac environment. Right? This isn't like a window in a window. This is an application being streamed to me on my Mac. So now if I want to go in, I would say, let's look at that Internet Explorer conundrum. I want to run IE because there's a workload or a web page that's legacy that I still need to run on my Mac. So it's going to start the application, and you're going to get the telltale cursor change in the hourglass to let you know this is a Windows instance. And it's going to load up Internet Explorer for me, And I'm going to be able to, again, interact with it seamlessly on my Mac environment, and it's going to be running at the speed of the target, which means, I'm not going to have a bunch of latency, and it's not going to be all slow and pokey. It's going to be quick, it's going to be zippy, and I'm going to kind of get back on my way. So this is the crux of the idea of that application environment, right? But it goes further, like we said, than just, talking about, the desktops. Moving on to the mobility of it. Being able to have, a real focus put on the applications where people can, kind of interact with like swipes and gestures inside of Horizon. If you've not had a chance to see Horizon View in action on a desktop or on a tablet, it's very exciting. And in fact, I've got for you a screen capture of my iPad, interfacing again with the ideas of application remoting. So let's take a look at that. The title here kind of says it all, right? We're looking at, Notepad on an iPad. Why not, right? If you have the capability to do it, why not deploy it? So, here you're seeing me interacting with my iPad. This was a screen capture. And I had, launched Notepad as an example. And, this is, kind of the basic interface. It allows you to interface with the application just as you would any other iOS-based app. You got your keyboard, and you can do something, overtly non-exciting, like, me saying, hey, hello world, I'm using Notepad. But, if we want to do something a little more exotic and bring to bear the ideas of real application mobility, right, let's look at that Access application again. Let's say I want to, launch Access, and I want to use this on my iPad in an airport. Well, here I'm using my iPad, and I now have, kind of a seamless experience leveraging Microsoft Access being streamed to me. Now, certain applications are a little less beautiful than others, and, so because of that, it's kind of a mileage may vary. But the functional idea here is that now you have a user where we're talking about they've got their tablet in hand, they've got all of their local applications, they've got their email, they've got note-taking, all of this stuff right alongside all of their enterprise-grade applications, and they're accessing everything from one common portal. So I mentioned, we talked about the one user interface. I kind of think that there's kind of a 1, 2, 3 approach to Horizon. There's one user interface, and there are two very distinct approaches when you look at, how these things are deployed and how these things are constructed. Any IT administrator will tell you that this equation is kind of consistent for them. Finding the time spent finding the issue is significantly greater than the time spent solving the issue, right? It is exceptionally difficult to, track stuff down. It's much easier just to solve it once it's there. So if we look at, kind of what everybody else has in play, we can see there's a whole lot of stuff going on here behind the scenes, okay? And this is a speak from experience type thing. These are the types of infrastructures that I used to design for people, where we've got application server systems, we've got licensing systems, we've got desktop, we've got provisioning systems to save storage, we've got a bunch of different databases and web interfaces, all kinds of madness. You deploy all this, and a lot of it is on physical servers. What does that get them? Well, it gets them desktops. It gets them a couple ways to deploy applications, and it gets them some storage savings, but it comes with a cost because you have so many physical systems and so many interdependent parts, right, that aren't aware of each other necessarily. It gives you lots and lots of configuration. Now, when you talk about deployment, right, remember I said that it's not just the cost, it's about the value kind of after that point, when it gets out to the customer's site and you're being engaged upon the success of the transaction. Okay? We want everybody to have confidence in what they're buying. So lots of config doesn't necessarily sound like a ton of fun. And having done lots of config, I can tell you it's not. Now, if we look at what's behind the scenes with us, number one is instead of talking about a bunch of physical systems, we're talking about deploying it against, vSphere, right? What they've known, trusted, it's been proven and battle tested for years. And they're able to deploy a very, very simple infrastructure where we have, our VDI being met, where we've got some, our storage requirements being met. We've even got that workspace portal being deployed as an appliance, right? That you don't have to deploy a bunch of machines. You just drop it in and go. And then for the app streaming, it's really nothing more than a couple more virtual machines, right? And we're even able to provide all sorts of new security inside of this with a much simpler architecture. What does this get them? Well, it gets them desktops, gets them, applications 3 ways. It gets them storage savings, and it gets them that ubiquitous portal that they can access everything in, right? All inside. So they're getting more inside of less architecture, and they're doing it with minimal amounts of installation. In fact, most of this installs with just one binary, which is absolutely exciting. So we talked about, how the support team and the admins are going to benefit from this. Inside of Horizon 6, we've got all new features baked in for VC Ops for View, allowing people to actually monitor and manage not just the desktop environments and the server environments, but also to see the application pools and see how those are performing. This all makes it very, very easy on the support team to be able to, move around and to see, what's going on inside of their Horizon infrastructure. How are their server systems behaving, right? How are, their infrastructure workloads for, things like Horizon View behaving? As we get to GA, you'll see plugins in here for, like I said, things like the application pools. We're able to give administrators and support teams the ability to, quickly identify and get to resolution for, things like, CPU and memory workloads and all of these things that users might have issues with. User calls up and says, hey, my system seems slow. Well, why? Let's take a look at it. And from this one view, he's able to drill into that user's machine and to find out exactly what is going on in that space. So this is very, very exciting. Now, normally, if you were to show this or demonstrate this to someone, they're going to say, okay, well, this is all well and good. I see it's easy for the user and it's easy for the support guy, which means it's going to be a nightmare for the administrator, which means I'm going to have to spend weeks, writing Linux code and all kinds of stuff. Well, that's when we look at this and we say it's also exceptionally easy on the admin. This is an administrator's view of Horizon. They can see all of the stuff they want to add in. If they want to plug in Citrix applications or mobile management, they want to, manipulate and add things into their catalog. They can do anything they want. And we even give them cloud application catalogs that they can leverage, things like, Google and ADP and all that sort of stuff. Or they can build in their own and create something completely unique. This also gives them the capacity to, make everything policy-based and also generate reports on the fly that they can leverage directly with management. So now you've got, ease of use for the user. You've got ease of use and functionality and breadth and scope for the support teams. And you have ease of management for the administrative staff. So, we've covered a pretty big range of what it can do. So like I said, we've got one portal. We've got 2 very distinct approaches. And now if we look at the 3, there are 3 easy ways, to motion these additions. So let's take a look at what's available inside of Horizon 6. Horizon 6 comes in 3 editions. The first edition of Horizon 6 is Horizon View Standard. And, it can't be understated that this is an operative word. Okay, you guys need to remember that when somebody purchases Horizon View Standard, what they're really getting is Horizon View. They're not really getting a lot of the other stuff that extends beyond it. When they move into Horizon Advanced, they start getting the ability to start, scaling up and integrating with, more cloud ideas. They get a deeper reach into their infrastructure. Yes, they get all of the stuff that bridges them to Horizon Standard, but they also get kind of that, look outward into what Horizon Enterprise is capable of, which is, kind of why, I like to see Horizon Advanced as kind of the target. That is where you're going to get a lot of traction and get a lot of flexibility with what, customers are capable of doing. So what's available in each one of these three so you're familiar? Well, if we look at Horizon View Standard gives them what they need for desktop infrastructure, and it gives them the ability to create the thin app packages, kind of like they always could. So basically, an application that was created on Windows can run on Windows, but it doesn't need to install. That's the big idea. If we go over here to Advanced, yes, it does all of that as a baseline, but it also gives them the application packaging functionality so they can do the hosted apps. It gives them the XenApp and RDSH and ThinApp and SaaS integrations. And it also gives them licensing for Virtual SAN. So Advanced can really be kind of a single SKU. They buy their servers, they buy the Advanced SKU, and they've got everything they need to be up and running with a really solid, beautiful end-user computing environment right out of the gate. As they move up into higher enterprise class, into enterprise, you're looking at, the integrations for, issue resolution, the operations and all that sort of thing, as well as being able to create custom workflows and orchestration. But again, I think that, for all of us, this really has to be, kind of a key focal point, is to look at that advanced layer. That's where customers are going to get big bang for the value, including, and this can't be understated enough, getting their Virtual SAN for desktop. That's just enormous. In addition to being available in the bundles, Horizon View Standard, Advanced, and Enterprise Edition, there are still standalone products available. Some of those that are kind of the old standbys that people have been nice and familiar with for a long time, including the Horizon View add-on, the Horizon Mirage Win 7 migration, and, people can still, buy Virtual SAN and VCOps for View and all sorts of those things individually. But, again, inside of this space, because of what we're able to give them in the bundle, it makes a very compelling reason for your customers to move toward the bundle. And, you're going to want to talk back to, the team here at Tech Data so that they can kind of guide you into what promotions are available and how you move in and out of these bundles and what's going to be best for you. So all of this talks about the ideas of really kind of an on-premise cloud, right, or excuse me, an on-premise end-user computing environment, which is, very conventional. But VMware is thinking well beyond that as well. We're going to have, I'm sure there will be additional sessions that you'll see around Horizon DaaS. Today we spoke strictly about, an on-premise desktop as a service, right? This is your Horizon 6, lives right there. But there is also this other space where if you have users that maybe they're not ready to deploy something on site, they can look at deploying desktop as a service and actually purchase on a per desktop basis. Again, you'll want to connect back with Tech Data to kind of identify the different formats available for desktop as a service, but it gives you even more flexibility for customers that might not have the infrastructure ready to support it, or they might not have the pockets for it. So there's a lot of new ways and new exciting approaches to all of this. I think you can really see that, our core vision is to get away from, that client-server environment where it's a one-to-one and everything's tied together, and move more toward an open environment where everything is getting into either an on-premise or off-premise subscription-based cloud, and it's accessible across any device they want. This is the vision, and this is the reality of Horizon 6. This is what we've brought to bear in the market and what we're making capable for you to motion today and for your folks to deploy tomorrow. With that, I'm going to kind of wrap up and I can open this up for questions, or we can take stuff after the fact. And I would like to thank you all for your patience and attending today, and then we can continue conversations on from here.